Welcome to Archery Talk 101 podcast, your guide to better archery skills. We'll bring you the latest tips, tricks, and expert advice, but that's not all. We'll also have interviews with top archers and industry professionals and reviews of the latest gear and equipment and much more. Archery hunting in sub-zero temperatures is the ultimate challenge. Hello, my name is Roy Canterbury, your host today on Archery Talk 101. And in this episode, we're going to discuss the precautions that you need to take to ensure a safe and successful archery hunt during the colder months of the year. Now, here in Nebraska, the temperatures can get below zero. It's routinely, still during hunting season. Our hunting season ends for archery end of December, and we can get some really cold days. So today, isn't quite so bad, but here this last week we had temperatures like minus 15 and winds from 20 to 30 mile an hour, which gave us, it's like some wind chills of minus 45 to degrees to, minus 42 C is kind of the equivalent. So that's really cold. So what I did was just to kind of get some idea for you is I went out and Googled a wind chill chart, and it popped up one from NOAA, and it has their wind chill index. It gives you the wind speed as well as the temperature, and then there's a chart that gives you your frostbite, time that you have for your frostbite. And it gave us about 10 minutes before you'd have frostbite out in that temperature with those kind of winds. And exposed skin is going to start getting frostbite and freezing, and staying there too long, and you can actually be very, very dangerous, and you can lose fingers and noses and whatever is exposed. So you got to make sure you're prepared for it, as well as be prepared in your vehicle as you're traveling. Whether you're in your car or your truck, always make sure you have something extra to help keep you warm in case those things do happen. Extra warm boots or socks or extra blankets or anything that'll help you stay warm. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the dressing. You need to dress properly for the weather. You see kids, it's out, single digits or even below, and you'll see people out with short pants or out in the t-shirt or something. That's not a very wise idea to do. You at least need to have something with you. So here's the real key to staying warm when it starts getting cold, and that is layering. You want to layer your clothes so that you have a good mix of stuff, so you don't have try to depend on one garment to keep you warm. So to start with, on your base layer, you want to have something that's moisture wicking. So that's going to wick away the moisture, and that way it keeps your skin dry. And then the next layer is what keeps you warm. So that could be, whatever elements you want. There could be a down filled, a wool filled, or anything, whatever's going to keep you warm. And then the outer layer is what's going to protect you from the elements. If you're going to be in an area where there's a lot of water, you need something that's going to protect you from water. If you have something where there's the wind, something to protect you from the wind. If you can't keep the elements out, the warming layer is not going to help you. So you want to consider that in what you're going to use. You also want to consider when you're going in, as you're walking in, you don't want to be layered up so as if you're going to sit there and stand. Either sit in a blind or sit in a tree stand or a ladder stand. Whatever you want to do, you need to be dressed for appropriately. So as you're walking in, you don't need as much insulation, but when you're going to be sitting, you need to put it on. So that's something you need to think about as you're going out there and doing that. Now, one thing, don't forget the hat. You're going to lose a lot of heat through your head if you don't wear some kind of a hat. Whether you have a baseball cap on and then a hood or whatever, or a mask, and nice warming mask. That's all going to help. So next thing, don't forget your fingers. Your fingers can get cold very easily. A little hand warmer helps out, keeps them, a little more toasty. You don't have to have it quite so cold. And it's a good idea to bring extra layers. If the weather turns worse than what you think, you're going out and it's going to be this temperature, all of a sudden a cold front comes through and all of a sudden the temperature drops. Or, worse yet, if you have to spend more time than what you thought, You may need some extra layers or blankets or something to help keep you from, getting cold. So now let's discuss some conditions, on your hunting. You can have snow and ice that can make it more difficult to move around. So, make sure you have boots, that's going to give you some good traction as well as, help you avoid slips and falls. The right boots are going to help keep your feet warm. You want to kind of, you don't want to have a boot that's rated for, like -60 and then it's 40 degrees out and you're trying to walk in with them because it might get cold. So you might need to change your boots or put covers on or something. So you just got to think about all that stuff before you go out. Now, it's always a good idea to bring a map or a compass or GPS or something to navigate in case you get turned around or lose your way. This is, if you're in an area that you know very well, it's easy to find your way back out, even in the dark. There's no way you can get turned around and get to the wrong place. You might have to walk further than you have to. Then it may not be important. But if you're in an area where there's a good amount of woods or something, or in a new area that you're not familiar with, you need to get familiar with the terrain before you go out and plan your route. And, someplace you can even use markers, those little reflective tags that you can put on those little pins, or even the marking tape that you can mark as you're going in, find your way back out. If you're not going to go back in, go ahead and take them down with you as you're coming back in. That's one thing you can do to, make sure you don't get lost, because that can mean you're going to have to spend some time out in the forest. And that's why earlier we talked about make sure you bring extra stuff in case something comes up. Now, the other thing you want to consider is the impact of the cold on your equipment. Be sure to keep your bow and arrows in a well-maintained and good working order. The strings on your bow can become brittle in the cold, so it's important to keep them waxed, well lubricated. That's going to help them out. If you're out in an area where you come in and you might be a little mist or rainy coming down, or snow, and it melts on there and it freezes, that can affect them. So you have to think about that kind of stuff when you're in some of this extreme cold temperatures. Now additionally, the cold can affect your arrows. They can become stiffer, just like your bow. The bow is stiffer, so it may be harder to pull back. All that you need to take into account. And it might be worth it to go out and do some practicing on some of these real cold days when you can't go out and hunt. Take your bow out and see how it acts when it's still warm, and then stay out there for a while, see how it acts when it gets really cold. It's better to know now on a day when you're not hunting than it is when you go out hunting and you find out there's something that works differently. If you got moisture and you're using like a drop away, it may freeze and not drop. And so look at that. Okay, let's say you don't have a drop weight, got a regular rest. What happens, when that gets cold, or even a biscuit. If you got moisture out there, those fletching are going to go through that biscuit. So you need to know what's going to happen. If it does get a little moisture on it and does freeze, your arrow may not leave that biscuit like it's supposed to. So that's something to think about when you're going out. Now, another thing is a good idea to bring extra strings and arrows in case you have any issues. Now, if you have a compound bow, bringing extra strings isn't going to really help unless you bring a little portable bow press to work on it. And a lot of the new ones that are beyond parallel limbs, you're not going to work on with a special press. So if you're just going on a day hunt, extra strings probably wouldn't do you much good. But if you're going on a long trip one, like you're going out of town, you're going to be gone for a week or two hunting, I'd go ahead and have an extra set of strings, because if they do have a problem, you can always take that, find a pro shop that can put them on for you, and then do some shooting, and you're back in there. What you may want to do is take those strings, while they're still good and you're all sighted in, all ready to go, take those off and, package them up so if they're ready to go, you don't have to break them in and put your new one on, break it in between season. Now you have this extra set of strings. Worst case happens, you cut a few strands, you don't want to hunt with them, go to a pro shop and say, okay, put these back on, few shots, make sure everything is all good, and then you're back up and running. That's something you want to think about, depending on how long you're going to be gone, as well as how long, it's going to be between when you leave and when you come back. Now, like on a recurve or longbow, X string is easy to change, so you don't have to worry about it. I just bring your extra one. You have a problem because you're only going to string them at night anyway and restring them. So just matter changing them is not a big problem. So now let's get into talking about, the animals you may encounter on your hunt. Besides what you're hunting for, there could be other animals out there. You want to keep an eye out for tracks and other signs of wildlife, and use caution when you're approaching the animals you come across. You don't know what they're going to be doing. If they're an animal like a wild pig, they may come running towards you, or they may run away. You never know. That's the thing you want to look at too, is when you have, if you're in an area where there's large predators such as bears or cougars, it's a good idea to take extra precautions and be aware of your surroundings at all times. And besides, when you're walking into your hunting area, you want to take a look at what all is around. You don't want to just kind of look down and go, because you may get your shot on the way into your hunting area, which also allows you to look for predators that you wouldn't want to encounter. Now, here in Nebraska, we don't have bears, but there is some lions around. Not a lot of them. They're kind of more afraid of you than you are of them, but you don't want to come up on them. So you always need to look at what's going to be out there. Now, one thing you want to remember when you do come across these animals, know what your hunting regulations are and laws are, and be respectful of the animals and their habitat. You don't want to disturb them, because if you have an animal in there and you're watching this animal, it's doing something. If another animal comes in, you can watch that reaction and see what they do. I know there was one time a little bitty spike buck come walking around, is hanging around my tree stand, give me lots and lots of shots if I wanted. But you know what? I figured he's a good decoy, because he's not what I'm going to shoot. He's going to let me know when a bigger buck comes in, because he's going to start looking at it. He may run off. So, use them if you can, to be indications for what can happen, with other animals are starting to come in. Now, and generally, your safety in general is something we want to talk about here for a little bit too. It's important to be prepared for any situation that may arise. Bring a first aid kit. You always have something, because in the cold weather, it don't take much to open your skin up. It don't take much. It's just that something about that cold. You can cut yourself a little easier. Make sure you have a flashlight. Now, I bring more than one flashlight. I have a couple of those little mini mag flashlights. I have two of those I keep with me on a little belt. And then I have a bigger flashlight. And sometimes I might have 2 or 3 extra flashlights. I have a nice, really, really bright one that I carry if I need to look at something really bright. And I have the small ones that help in that. So, I might have 2 or 3 flashlights with me just to make sure I have, light. Because if you have a battery go bad or a bulb goes bad, I've had that where I go in with one flashlight and all of a sudden it quit working. Well, I put it away, grab the other one, and I can still have a light. So it doesn't hurt to have extra ones there. Make sure you have, plenty of that. Bring along your knives if you have these saws, for cutting branches, or if you get deer, those tree saws will work for helping them process the deer. Then you want to make sure you have with you, keep something along that you can communicate with others. Now, nowadays, everybody has a cell phone. Don't always have a signal. So if you're in an area we don't have a signal, you might need a 2-way radio, which I used to have with me as well when I go out. I'd have one, and my son would have one, or my hunting partner would have one. And then when it's ready to go, you'd say, okay, hey, we're ready to go. I'm getting down. I'm walking to your tree stand, or I'm walking out. So that way they know you're coming. Now, you want to check your game laws, because, some places you can't communicate traffic of deer movement. You can't radio them and say, hey, you got a big one coming your way. That can be illegal in some of your areas. And 2-way radios, once you key that mic up, anybody that's within range can hear it. So you just want to make sure that you're not using it for, movement of game. Now, let's say you're hunting alone, two-way radio don't do any good. Cell phone may or may not do any good depending on where you're at. If you're in an area where you don't have good cell reception, then you may not be able to call. So that's important to let someone know your plans, and then check in with them and see what are they, what are you doing? Let them know I'm going here. Here's where I'm going to be at. I'm going there. I'm going to be done hunting at this time. And then if I do get something, then, maybe a little bit later, if you can get to a place you can call and then call and say, hey, I'm tracking a deer. I'll let you know when I get it, and then check in. That just keeps the person that's at home knowing that you're okay. You're out there, especially when you're hunting alone. If you're hunting with somebody, it's still important to check in, but not quite as important as if you're all by yourself. That's kind of the things that we can look at when doing that. There's a lot of other conditions. There is some conditions that you just don't want to go out in. Like that day I was telling you about earlier, where it was minus 15, minus 11, and with 20 and 25 mile an hour winds. For one, I'm not going out and hunting in it. The deer with those kind of winds, they're not moving. They're finding someplace out of the wind and they're going to sit. Whenever I've hunted in high winds like that, the only time you either see the deer, they're either running or you don't see them. I've never seen them walking in those kind of winds, because they get spooked. They're just running because they don't know what's going on either, because they heard some noise, heard something, seen something spooked them, and they're running. So, days like that, you're better off if you can avoid it. Just stay home on those really, really dangerous days. Because like I said, with that kind of a wind and that kind of temperature, you got about 10 minutes of exposed skin, you're starting to get frostbite. So unless you have to be out, then I would kind of avoid that. So once again, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Archer Talk 101. If you'd like to take your archer skills to the next level, you might want to check out some coaching. I've been coaching for over 25 years, and I teach the secret techniques that the Olympic archers use to hit the mark they're shooting at. So if you'd like to find out if coaching might be for you, I have a free 15-minute consultation call. I'll leave a link in the description below on how you can contact me to fill out a form, and then we can schedule our time to see if coaching might be for you. Once again, it's a free 15-minute consultation call. See if coaching might be for you, and it just could be what you need to take your archer skills to the next level.